Okay, so you and I have a small beef to discuss to start out. Not real beef, just podcast bros beef, which is we were playing around with a new recording software, and last time was the first time we used it. And the magic of AI cut us up some clips, and I posted a couple of them. And you made a comment about how ridiculous I made you look, and I, of course, feel terrible. When I posted that first thing, I was just like, yeah, this is fine. I don't pay that close of attention to it. And the edits were so good, and it clipped up like three different things you were saying into one, that it sounded like you were an insane person. So clarify for the audience that you're not crazy.
Well, I don't get to tell you whether I'm not crazy or not. I think you have to say that. But no, I promise that I think I can speak in full coherent sentences most of the time, despite what that clip uh, spliced me up to do. I think I'm able to convey my thoughts in the English language a little better than what that allowed me to.
Oh, good. Well, I will honestly, I will do my best this time to get. We'll just have like a full Zach like featured like super wisdom. So it's coming. You're gonna have to say something amazing, and I'll clip it up, and we'll feature it. But
Great.
okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way. I updated our topics list. I don't know if you saw it yet, but we've got a few things to talk about. The one we previewed last time, you fighting with an online instructor, I want to get to quickly. But before we do that, actually, I really want to hear about your golf game. The last time we talked, you were swinging a pitching wedge 125 miles an hour. And, we've kind of gone back and forth since then about some other stuff, but we haven't really talked about your golf game. What's been going on?
Yeah, well, there's still a few inches of snow on the ground here in Northwest Ohio, so it's all just in my sim room in my house, which is fine. The speed training, what did I call it? Redneck speed training stuff, I haven't done
Mm-hmm.
quite as much of here. I kind of tapped out after you showed me that chart with the PGA Tour averages for swing speed and ball speed and smash factor. I can get myself there, but I don't need to. I can probably bounce around. I mean, I think you showed me that a 9 iron PGA Tour average about 87 mile an hour swing speed. I can comfortably sit at about 82, 83, and I'm good there because right now I'm more interested in my swing path. I'm pretty good at bringing the club in to out, which is kind of nice, and direction here. So I'm trying to avoid the lefts as much as I can. I'm kind of focused on hitting fades and draws on command. And to be candid with you, I know all my followers pay attention to my workouts on Twitter. I'm lifting a lot heavier than I do during the
Mm.
season, and I'm sore basically all the time now.
Oh,
And so even if I wanted to really crank it up, I think I risk hurting my lower back. And so I'm going to finish up this strength block, I call it, probably in February or March, and then dial that back so I can start getting ready for outside golf season.
what is the distance you pull your pitching wedge out at now on the course?
Comfortable is probably 135. I can
Oh,
step
okay.
on one at 145, and then I can back it down to, if I choke up and open my feet a little bit, anything between 125 and 140, chances are
Hmm.
I'm grabbing a pitching wedge.
Do you happen to know the loft on your pitching wedge?
That it launches at or the actual loft on the club?
Loft, yeah, just loft angle on the club.
46.
Oh, okay. So if you have a 46-degree pitching wedge, let's see, I have that. Yeah, that's what I play too, is 46. And then I have 50, yeah, 50, 54, 58 are my wedges. Okay. Yeah. So it's like, and when we met, you were hitting your driver in, your good ones in the 280 range already, right?
Carry 260, total in the 280s.
Rollout.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, I do love the idea of kind of working your motor learning at aggressive speeds, like overly aggressive speeds, like for the sake of like, just advanced scaling. But in terms of like the types of golf courses you play, it's like, there's pretty diminished returns on distance, right? If you like for you to gain significantly more distance, like I don't know how much benefit you would get from it, but some for sure. So you said working on path and being able to swing into out. Tell me more about what that means, like when you're in the simulator room.
Yeah, it goes back to, I should have written the guy's name down. Your boy that we watched a bunch of videos on,
Monty.
Monty. Yes, Monty had that no cast, no turn thing where actually he
Hmm.
kind of teaches you to cast, but it's at that 10 o'clock angle. We talked about it on one of these podcasts. I'm not prepared enough to talk about this eloquently, so you can flip this out on Twitter so I sound like an idiot. But the idea would be at the top of the backswing, if I cast my hands at that, which in my mind it's 10 or 10:30. If I cast my hands there and then swing through, for me, that creates an in to out swing path. So, and to the tune of like two, I think it's like 2 to 3 degrees. It's not anything significant. Whereas if I don't do that, I tend to come down steeper and I end up with an out to in, where if the club face is square, I get this kind of left to right ball that I lose a bunch of distance on, or if it's closed, it closely resembles that snap hook that you and I spent an entire season trying to get rid of.
So it's
So,
like more of a pull draw nowadays.
yes, exactly. It starts left, goes left. Now, it's not 30 yards offline like it used to be, but it may be 10 to 15, which is still too much. I'm missing greens at that point. So, yeah,
Oh,
that's me. So I get up to the top and I try to do that at like, 70% speed, 80% speed, then eventually what I would consider 100, that little casting
okay.
motion that Monty talks about.
Well, let's bookmark, say, some homework that's completely voluntary for you. I would love to actually, one of the things we've never done, and since we're kind of, say, off formal coaching, I would love to supplement at this point with like you sending me some data from your sessions. Like, is your data easily exportable? Like, can you tag them like, hey, this one was good, this one sucked, this one I felt this, or just a, because I don't actually ever see your launch monitor numbers, and I think it might be really useful for us long term to just kind of co-monitor them and kind of baby tag different feels and different benchmarks along the way. So let's make a point to do that if and only if it's fun for you. I like
No,
to
yeah,
note
I can
note
definitely
for
do
all
that.
of this.
Yes, for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a simulator, there's a software that's specific for like this nerding out type thing where you can export as a, Excel file.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely do that.
That sounds right up my alley. Exporting to
Oh, I'm sure.
Excel.
Yeah, I knew you'd like that. That's why I use that phrase specifically. Yeah.
Spreadsheets and emails. Okay. Well, good. Yeah. Let's see. Anything else you wanted? Oh, that's the last thing I wanted to ask about your golf. It's like what's the volume like? How often are you getting in the simulator room in the last, say, month? And what sort of rep count do you think you're getting?
I would say during the week, I probably have 2 sessions after work where I'm maybe hitting 30 to 40 balls, so nothing crazy. And then I've been able to, on the weekends, probably get one session that's closer to an hour where I can get
Hmm.
between uh, 75 to maybe even as much as 100. So that's been fun. And that's one where I can
Okay.
really, if I have that 30 to 40 ball session, I'm starting with like a 56-degree wedge. I'll maybe work my way up to pitching wedge, but that's it. But then if I'm able to sort of have a whole, 45 minutes to an hour, then I'll work my way all the way up to, 6 or a 7 iron, and then a lot of times back down too. So that's been pretty good. So it's probably not as intense as it was last off season when you and I were so
Yeah.
focused on
Nor
getting
nor
the
should
right.
it be.
No, but it's maintenance and it's comfortable enough that it doesn't take me too long to get back into the groove when I get in there.
And do you still like it? Like, so I hit simulator balls the other day, and it's like I basically, I don't want to say sneak down there because I'm allowed to go in any room in my house anytime I want.
Sure.
Those are the those are the rules
Yeah, you're a grown
around
man. Yeah.
here. But I don't know. I feel like using the word sneak down there. I sneak down there when like my wife and two kids are gone. Like they like to visit this older couple neighbors of ours, and so my golf schedule tends to like intersect perfectly with them hanging out with their adopted grandparents.
Mhm.
And I I'm constantly kind of like checking in, say, internally. So like do I enjoy this still? And for the most part, almost every time the answer is in the dosage I do it, which is a couple times a week, 20 to 40 balls at a time. At that dosage in this weather, I'm looking at snow out of my window right now. I do enjoy it. Do you still enjoy it?
Yes, it's therapeutic for me. I mean, my other option would be I'd be sitting in my chair watching some game that I don't really care about or scrolling Twitter on my phone, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
I enjoy, similar to what we talked about last podcast, where I would, sit on an Xbox and run the same Madden play 50 times, right? I
Yeah.
uh, I I enjoy going in there and tinkering. Now, if I didn't have a
Yeah.
launch monitor, I would probably get bored very quickly because it'd be hard. I can sort of track ball flight into the screen and get a sense of what it's doing. But the fact that I can look at that, I can throw a little sticker on my club and look at all the data, both from the ball and the club itself, without even turning the software on. I mean, if I don't actually want to turn the screen on, I can still at least look down and see what
I
I'm doing.
rarely turn the screen on. Yeah.
Right. So no, yeah, I really, really enjoy that. I really do. It's like I said, it's therapeutic. I go in there for half an hour. It's my own time to do my own thing. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Mm, good. Yeah. I mean, it sounds so cliche to even say it, but I really do think that's all it comes down to. Is if you happen to be the type of person who thinks that's fun, it's like
Yeah.
you can get better at golf. On a very, very related note, I might constantly like drafting tweets in my head, and most of my tweeting experience, or excuse me, X posting experience nowadays is like writing something, deleting it, and then closing the app. Like I don't actually post, but I have lots of ideas, and one of them, that's obviously very relevant to the people that pay attention to the podcast is like getting better at golf. And I think on the back of the book, I wrote something about, what if golf improvement had a prerequisite no one had ever taken? And, that's kind of the premise of what the text is about. And I think that like if you can absorb those ideas as you have, you've got a good chance. And then I think there's this other prerequisite, let's say like levels of prerequisites. And the thing I've been thinking about recently is I'm curious what you think about this. I feel like it's true to say that one of two things needs to be in place before a person can get better at golf if they have a good understanding of like, meta improvement and motor learning. And that's the following like lifestyle things. They either need to be pretty goddamn fit. You're welcome. As you know, you are in great shape, or unconventionally employed to some degree or another. When we met, you were both. You were in great shape and you were able to work from home, right? So I feel like if there are any, dad bods out there with a traditional 9 to 5 and a commute, you can basically just give up on this idea altogether. Is kind of the hard hitting thought that I have. And as offensive as it might sound, my argument is that like it's an energy input problem, that people that aren't in good physical shape and don't have the bandwidth from unconventional employment, they literally might not have the energy to do the motor learning tasks for a long enough sustained period of time to make the changes and coordinate them into lower scores and better handicaps. Okay, end rant. What do you think?
No, and I think I have personal experience with that. I have not always been in good shape. I mean, I grew up a very overweight kid,
You were
and
a fatty, right?
oh yeah, yeah, and for sure. And I'm 60. I think I'm 60 pounds lighter now than I was when Ashley and I
Hmm.
got married in 2009. So
Yeah.
where I'm going with that is when I learned golf, I didn't get into weightlifting or running or anything until my late 20s, early 30s. When I learned golf, I learned it as an out of shape person. Now, as a child, you can get away with that a little more. But I know that one of the reasons why I was across the line and the early extension and all the positions I got into was because my body physically, I don't think I could do the things that needed to happen, or I was strong in the areas I needed to be strong to get the club in the right position and then to swing through the way that you need to be most efficient and to be most consistent. So I think that's completely correct that you could have the knowledge here on where the club needs to be in various positions. But if your body can't get it there, or if you can get it there, but you can't hold it there or maintain strength or get it from position to position, then it's going to be it's impossible, I think. So I think both those things absolutely have to happen as a prerequisite before you can advance
Hmm.
too far.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it's like there are. I do think there are some physical limitations that people with certain levels of strength have, and I think that's a really very valid point. What what I'm referring to more so is the idea that like when you're healthy and in good shape and fit and you eat well and you work out, that you literally have more energy through the day. So
Yeah,
that when it comes time to like input the level of focus and bandwidth required to do that super exaggerated movement 30 times for 40 days in a row just to see yourself shank it, in the beginning, that that you need that. And I don't think it's exclusive to being in good shape. I do think that if you're unconventionally employed by itself, you could do it as well. Yeah, I've seen a friend who's not in great shape do this. And it's like if you just look at tour players as well, I mean, talk about unconventionally employed. I'm sure there are plenty of guys who've changed their swings and improved who also, didn't have a single visible ab to show.
sure.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
Daly won two majors, man.
yeah, that guy. Holy cow. What a talk about an extreme end of coordination and just
Yeah. No, he's an anomaly. Yeah, right.
superstar. Okay. Well, yeah, sorry about my rant there about being in shape. I'm sure people love it. You got into an internet fight, and not a traditional internet fight, but a gentleman version of one. It was very sophisticated. There were no awful things said, but there was a post by a popular golf instructor on Twitter, this very handsome Australian fellow named Ryan Moke. He posts some great stuff. He has a lot of like very very technically great content I've found over the years following him. And he posted a thing. He said a saying that I hate in golf called swing rebuild. And he goes on this rant about why this is kind of a silly phrase and how, most people should be thinking about making small changes and yada, yada, yada. And this triggered the fuck out of you. And you replied kind of tooting your own success horn about the 10,000 reps we did and the 9 to 4 handicap you hit it, and showing even evidence of a portion of the swing changes that show up in the backswing, the most easily visible ones. Not that they are limited to that, of course, even though his kind of silly response indicated that it did. But it's the internet, right? Text is hard. So what happened in the moments before you push send?
Well, this is a fight in semantics, right? Which, as an
Mm.
attorney by day
Oh,
who
geez. Yeah.
writes contracts and litigates contracts and has seen cases won or lost by a simple turn of phrase, right, and an interpretation thereof. This is the type of thing. I mean, this is catnip, right? I mean, had to do
Yeah.
it. So, yeah, I mean, the definition of a swing rebuild, I think, is very, very subjective. So my point was, and he's great. There's a lot of these online guys that I've blocked because the stuff that they put out there is not helpful and just ideas for clicks and just very surface level. If anything, it's probably to the detriment of people watching it. He's not one of them, like you said, and I don't have the eye you do, but his technical stuff I think is great. But
He's very, I mean, I've not seen him say anything technical that I was like, that's wrong.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So my point was that you can call this a rebuild, you can call it a tiny change, you can call it whatever you want. To me, going through it for the months that I did in my, the privacy of my own simulator room and hitting all these shanks that you and I talk about, it felt like a complete teardown and rebuild. And I understand to the naked eye or just based on that screenshot or whatever, it may not look that significant, but it's hard for me to imagine something more significant than swinging club the wrong
Mm.
way for 24 years and then in one season switching that portion of the swing around so that I could do what I did. That was where I was going with that. So call it whatever you want. It was pretty damn significant for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's the kind of guy, the three of us, we could have a great chat over a beer and probably not disagree on anything relative in private, but it's public. And like the the fundamental problem that I, have pointed out way too many times is that he's in a really tough spot. Like he's done a great job growing his audience on Twitter, doing all the things you're supposed to do. And once you decide that you're going to go down that road of being, like doing social selling or content marketing, once you mix marketing with, let's say, education, shit gets real weird and incentives get real fucked up pretty quick. And so, saying things that trigger people or, get people to reply, like, is a part of that game, right? And like doing it with, well, this phrase and your movement don't qualify, in my opinion, like, it's a great strategy to generate sales of digital products that he has on his website. So it's like, I hate how these worlds kind of collide between like what could otherwise be a celebration of what you did into this semantic nonsense. And so I came in to defend you. I think I wrote, it's all semantics on some level. Big changes to outputs require some version of big changes to inputs. And that post, I believe, got one like. Let's see who liked it. Who liked it? Oh, Ryan himself. Right? It's like, so he knows, right? And I think we should just generally chalk this up to the perverse incentives of public content marketing and semantics. And I think you should be really proud of what you've done, because the points you make about how you can't imagine it not feeling like anything else other than a rebuild is like, right. I mean, isn't that the point? Like, if anything, you could take his claim about rebuild and actually make the opposite point, which is that for amateur golfers to see any kind of changes that they would actually give a fuck about, they actually need to think of tweaks or adjustments or small changes as catastrophic rebuilds, right? Like, because that's what it's going to feel like. And that's what the physical process is actually like. So he's kind of, I mean, I think he could use the same wording to make the entirely opposite point.
Yeah, I think that's right. To be fair to him, I understand how the engagement farming works. And to your
Yeah,
point, I don't think that if the three of us sat down and had a beer, like you said, we'd be on the same page. And I was
of
happy.
course. Yeah.
One of the honest to God, it's funny you said that. One of the reasons I responded is because I knew that that would increase engagement both for him and for me, get more eyeballs on the post because of the way the algorithm works. And
Yeah.
again, it's semantics. I don't care what we're saying here, but I've done what I would consider like, small changes throughout the other lessons I've had over the past 20 whatever years. But in my mind, a little tweak is like foot position, alignment, club, like the way the club lays on the ground before you start the swing, right?
Mm.
Little tiny things that I've tweaked. Like, again, I call that a tweak, and that's given me limited success, but it still doesn't fix the fundamental flaws in either the backswing or the follow through. That came through you. So if I guess if that's a tweak, then I would love to know what a swing overhaul actually is. Well, I don't think I would like to know that because I'd
Yeah.
quit the game. If someone said the only way that you can be good is if you overhaul your swing, and that takes more than what you and I did over those 6 months, shit, I'm gonna go take up bowling or something. I'm done.
I
So
know. I mean, it's funny. It's like your movement changes. I mean, we have the evidence of them. It's like, say, if we just use the launch data and say down the line camera angles, like they're not that far off from pre Butch and post Butch Tiger Woods, right? If you look at, you know, the types of changes you've made. So it's like, I don't, does the scale go much higher? I guess it's like you could look at my old swing and my new swing and be like, okay, well, that's a rebuild. But it's like, I use the same methods you did, right? Like just over a longer period of time, right? So it's like, I mean, it's all kind of silly. And honestly, I wouldn't hold him accountable to anything he posts, for marketing purposes, really. It's like, it's just, he's just trying to make a living. So I don't want to take it too seriously, but
Yeah, for sure. I'm getting a little sick of being compared to Tiger Woods too. That's happening way too
uh,
often.
well, yeah, you're
I mean,
welcome.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
we should do, honestly, we should do a whole Tiger Woods episode because I was like ranting to my wife about Tiger this morning. This is what it's like to be married to me.
Sure.
And I have, I mean, so many thoughts about him. So I guess let's bookmark that idea. But
Deal.
okay, so let's close here. I know you've got to get to the dentist, and you're doing like full top dentures today. Is that right?
Are, I am actually wearing retainers now. We haven't talked about this, but it's funny you said that.
Oh,
I do
that
have an
well,
appointment
just
to get a new set tomorrow. So you're only a
oh,
day off actually. But
how
yeah, yeah,
funny. No, total coincidence. That is just the universe syncing up our my sense of humor with your schedule. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about was this. There was this amazing podcast that Adam Young and John Sherman did on their podcast, The Sweet Spot. They interviewed this amazing golfer called Will Kanoth, I think, or
I think
Kanot.
that's
I'm
right.
not sure if I'm getting his last name right. So I listened to the whole thing, bookmarked some clips. I mean, it was fantastic. Will has this amazing story about he starts college basically as a one handicap and ends college as like a plus four and ends up actually playing in a tour event because he won some cool award for being some super genius. Like he's working on his PhD in math at the moment. So super cerebral guy. And, basically, the podcast is like, how the hell did you do this? I mean, this is one of these benchmarks that so many people imagine they want to experience, going from like 0 or 1 to +3 to +5. And he did it. And so he goes into this whole thing, and I, for fun, plugged the transcript of the podcast into ChatGPT and asked it some questions about how he did it. Just, LOL engagement farming. But the the story is so like boring and wonderful. It's like he's a younger guy. I think he's like 25. So he gets to college. They've got a TrackMan or a simulator, and he's like I said, around scratch, and he decides I'm just going to work my ass off in this thing. I'm gonna out practice everybody, and he does this. And at the same time, he starts cross referencing, modern coaching ideas, and they get an assistant coach who comes in who's pretty knowledgeable about the swing, and he starts synthesizing the whole thing, and voila, 40,000 balls, and years later, he's a plus four. Can you believe it? Just like that, magic overnight.
Very important side note. He's a violinist. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point. He talked about, motor learning as it relates to music too, which is of course one of our themes we talk about all the time.
It's so similar. I mean, you have to be sort of a glutton for punishment, or you have to have the ability to just sit down and do the same thing over and over and over. That to, I would say, the normal, the average Joe or the non-musician, that would sound terrible. It would sound torturous. You have to have something in your wiring that allows you to do that for an extended period of time and remain engaged. And I don't know, I think that's a combination of genetics and like teaching yourself to do that. But it has to be there, because if you don't have that, I don't think you're successful in music, and I don't think you're successful in golf. And I say that from personal experience, to the extent that a four handicap is success. But I mean, I had a I had a full ride scholarship to play music in college. So I know from personal experience
Yeah.
that that is just something, it's a prerequisite. It has to be there.
Yeah, it's just like anything else in our biology. There is a matter of taste. Different people are attracted to different things. Some are into feet, for example, right? Don't spit your water out. I did not mean to do that while you were going to
You
ruin
say
that
one
laptop.
thing every time on one of these things, man. I clip that for this.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. But there were two other things he said that were great. So let me see if I can grab this one. So I wrote my favorite quote by a mile. Quote: "You have to play tournaments and get reps so that you can develop the skill of finding your baseline in that different environment." This fucking asshole summarized my whole book in one sentence. Uh, it's that there is so much in that one sentence. I would encourage folks to go back and listen to it. It is it's brilliant, and like he the terms skill, baseline, and environment. It's like if you've been listening to us for any period of time, you'll know how triggering, positively triggering those terms are for me, because I mean he's nailing it. Tournament golf is almost a different sport, right? The range is a different sport. Casual golf is a different sport. Tournament golf is a different sport, and your skill or baseline is relative to all those different environments, and you have to find it. Does that resonate at all with you?
100%. Yeah. And we talked, it's that Tiger quote that we talked about a couple podcasts ago too. But yeah, I can change the swing in my sim room, but I know it's going to feel different on the range. And I can change it on the outdoor range. And I know it's going to feel different when I go play my random Friday afternoon group
Mm-hmm.
for $50. And I can change it there too. But I know when I come play the club championship, which is my Augusta, right, that it's going to feel different then too. So yeah, it's that's very true because I think that as your nerves increase, you resort back to what you're comfortable with, and what I'm comfortable with is a way across the line, steep type swing. So yeah, that
Yeah.
resonates soundly with me.
Yeah, there was this. I guess the last point I want to make on this for today is there was this there was this great exchange. Well, I don't want to say great exchange. So prior to this moment in the podcast, like John Sherman is talking kind of around this concept with, he plays a lot of tournaments, and John really likes to use the word experience. And like, oh, just to give you an example. So John qualified for the US Mid Am, and it actually Will caddied for him in the US Mid Am. So they had a lot of that to talk about. And John went out and struggled at the Mid Am in the, two qualifying rounds. And one of the things, he's kind of recapping with Will is that, he just, he's as good as those other players, but he doesn't have the experience that they do. And I think there's a misconception there in that I think an experience can be a mask for a real word, which is skill, like a much more pointed concept. And that the players in, say, the mid am that beat John, most of them that beat him are actually just better at golf, and that their baseline in that very difficult environment is higher. Like they've developed more skill. And I think experience, and this is kind of semantics as well, but experience is like a degree or two less accountable than skill or skill development. And I think that the golfers in general would do themselves better to think of it not as like, oh well, I'm as good as so and so, but he beat me because he's got more experience. It's like, no, he has more skill in an environment. And anyway, I just think it's kind of core to how the whole thing works, is that your skill is relative to environment.
Agreed. Yeah, and I never would have thought about it that way until A, I read your book, and then B, I started kind of doing implementing the stuff through working with you and just kind of learning what it actually means to get better at golf as opposed to get better at golf swing. I think those are two different things.
Yeah, so it's like we start out shanking it in your simulator room,
Yes.
but only, because we have to start in some environment, and it wasn't it wasn't that long before you were on the range or on the golf course doing practice rounds, and then in, say, casual betting rounds, and then in, say, some best ball events with trophies, and then on vacation golf. And it's like every level of environment is different, and like it's like the concepts carry over, but like you said so well, it's like each environment presents its own new kind of like feel challenges, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the feel evolves, and the adjustments to get it back to, say, baseline, if you will, evolve as well. Okay, good. Yeah, let me grab my notes here. Let's see, I don't want to leave your dentist waiting. Okay, great. Yeah, we've still got a couple things we can put on top of our next list. Any closing thoughts?
Don't think so, man. How's your golf game? We never talk about you. Are you
Hey,
flushing it in your garage these
I
days?
was like, it was so cold in Kansas City recently that I you couldn't even go in the garage without like I mean, it was probably like in the 30s, and I was like, fuck that. But recently it warmed up, and so I went down there, and I I still do, like, probably, like 3 to 5 reps a day, just because I have like a club sitting upstairs. And then when I went and hit balls 2 days in a row, like I was very, very pleasantly surprised with like how like sensitive my feedback mechanisms were. So like, well, let's leave everybody and yourself with a drill or a thing you can do to really kind of hone your own feel mapping. One thing I do all the time is I'll hit a shot, and so remember, I don't have the screen on most of the time, and then I'll try to guess the numbers before I see them based on what it felt like.
That's cool.
And this, like, I've gotten so good at this over years that like it's you want to talk about a way to like transfer range to course. Like if you can if you have a virtual simulator with you on the golf course, because you know what it felt like, you know what the ball did, so you know the numbers, it's like the adjustments come a lot faster, I think.
Have you seen the video of Scheffler doing that?
Briefly, yeah, it was like his like long drive, maybe.
They would put a club in his hand and he would hit the ball and they would just have him guess the distance before the numbers popped up on the launch monitor. Anything
Yeah,
from like wedge to driver. It's wild.
that's
Wild.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the main thing I'm guessing is face and path, for what it's worth.
Oh, so you're not okay.
um
You're not worried about carry distance?
well, no, that would be like an asterisk third, right? It's like,
Okay.
so I will, yeah, it's like phase path and how far do I think that ball went based on what
That's
the
cool.
contact
Okay.
felt like. And
Okay.
of course, all those things are related, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the main thing I'm doing. And like, my cheap launch monitor is inaccurate sometimes, but for the most part, the basic thing you want to get good at as kind of a starting point for this is recognizing very, very quickly whether you had face left of path or face right of path, independent of your, say, zero target line.
Okay.
That would be because those feels like, as you know, like face left of path, or the draw impact bias feels a lot different than when the face is open relative to the path. It feels like you know, your grandma out there slapping
Yes.
at it. And it's like at the best level, my most productive sessions end when I can feel the same quality of strike, like that same powerful compressed strike, with the face right of the path. So the Scheffler baby cut
Yeah.
that is super flushed. Like that's the one that's really hard for me, and I'd say most single digits generally.
I think it's hard for every, yeah, because I can hit a fade on command, but man, it's
Yeah.
I lose, 10,
Yeah.
20% distance. It launches 3 or 4 degrees higher. So I guess that's a nice shot to have, but it's wild the difference between, like you said, left to path and right to path, what you
Hmm.
end up with.
Yeah. One of the things I do, like one of my favorite things to do, like watching golf on TV, like I'll like say if some of the old, like, they'll show like the full rounds of people, right? And if you want to tell if a tour player has hit a good shot, one of the like high correlates would be if they were pin high or longer right of the flagstick. Like you won't usually
Oh,
if people hit it long, right, they're left.
left.
So if they hit it pin high or longer right, you know they flush the shit out of it in most cases.
It's interesting.
So, all right, man, let's do it again. I will do my best to make you sound super smart.
I would really appreciate. I know that's a difficult job for you, but yeah, I
Okay.
would really appreciate that. And I'll get some launch monitor data over to you, and then we can nerd out on the next one and make people
Yes.
fall
Yeah.
asleep in their cars.
You have homework.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thanks, Zach.
you're welcome.